Rob Zombie's Halloween, which came out in 2007, is the remake of the John Carpenter film that came out nearly 30 years before that time, and is actually a really good film in its own right. I actually really like Rob Zombie's Halloween. I've always liked it, and there are people that dismiss it outright just because it's a remake and because it does something differently. But I think if you're going to remake something, much like what John Carpenter did with The Thing, you have to sort of redefine it and add your own flavor to it while keeping elements that made the original so good. You have to walk that fine line between honoring it but also making it your own, and I think Rob Zombie absolutely does that with this first Halloween film. So this movie is half about Michael's childhood and then half about the night he came home. So we explore a lot of his childhood and his initial break, whereas in the original film you see him as a kid for all of 60 seconds when he kills his sister, and that's it. But really it shows his home life, and I know that John Carpenter himself has criticized this, saying that you've taken away the mystery, but at the same time, if Zombie just retold the same film and kept Michael Myers a mystery, it wouldn't be a new and fresh thing. So we get to explore the more human side of Michael, and I don't think that makes him any less scary. In fact, the kid that plays Michael Myers is very good and very believable, that there are these two sides to his psyche that kind of switch on and off. And once he snaps and kills most of his family, it's horrifying to see this kid do these terrible things, and then he goes to the psych ward and kind of denies it, like almost like a kid would. And this is where we get to meet Loomis too, who is played very well by Malcolm McDowell. These are some big shoes to fill. I mean, Donald Pleasence, I've been praising Donald Pleasence all throughout my reviews, and I like that Malcolm McDowell brings a humanity to it. Like, he's more, I mean, there are hints of the Loomis that this is not a man, this is a monster we're talking about that we all know and love. However, he's not shown as perfect. He's shown a little bit more human, because after he works with Michael Myers, he writes a book about him and becomes famous about that book. Through that book, it's almost like a sort of fake TV doctor type thing going on, where he's very much exploiting this, and you could tell that he feels guilty, but at the same time he can't stop, because I mean it's made him a very rich man. However, when it's time for him to go stop Michael, he immediately recognizes that this is his responsibility. So in a way, it's interesting character development, and seeing his backstory with Michael as Michael grows up is really compelling stuff. And again, more with Michael Myers growing up, is I really like Sherry Moon Zombie. I think she's a great actress, and anytime she works with her husband, it's always a really good collaboration. And I like that husband-wife dynamic where he always seems to bring out the best in her acting-wise. And she's it's a very heartbreaking role. She's very believable as Michael Myers' mother, and it's her progression and her side of the story is very sad and tragic, as a mother who's essentially lost her son to this darkness inside of him. And then the other half of the film is it's a love letter to the original Halloween. I don't want to say it's a retelling or just a rehash, because Rob Zombie absolutely adds his own flavor to it. But like I said, there are callings to the original. Like, I just absolutely love how Rob Zombie is able to show his talent as a director and as a subtle director at the same time, where when we meet Laurie Strode, there are a lot of shots of Michael in the background where where the audience knows he's there, and the characters don't. There's a lot of that in this movie, and I absolutely love that. I loved it in the original too, but I like how Rob Zombie does some different shots with it. He doesn't just recreate shots from the original. There is a great there's a great tracking shot where there are trees, and Laurie walks behind the tree, and when she's supposed to walk out, you see Michael Myers, and then it kind of switches back and forth as showing that he's following her, but you don't know how close it is, so you're wondering if shit's gonna get started right then and there, but then it doesn't, and that's how you build tension. And then you get the Rob Zombie stuff that you expect from his films, from like Lords of Salem or Devil's Rejects, where it's a lot of gore and a lot of nudity and a lot of characters that kind of act stupid. And I mean, it's hard for me to explain. I mean, people who've watched his movies know exactly what I'm talking about. There are characters in his movies that are generally not very likable. They're just kind of there to be horror tropes and to be killed off in a very, very bloody way. And that's an aspect that always brings down his films for me. Is I wish he would stop writing characters or having characters like that in his movie, but I get that there are people that kind of enjoy that part of horror. And I mean, we get the very satisfying throwbacks, and there are different ways that he shoots it, like the famous bed sheet scene where Michael Myers is underneath the bed sheet with the eyes cut out. That's set up very differently, but it also has a few shots that are a throwback to the original. And the actor that plays Michael Myers is the biggest actor to play the character, to my knowledge. He is gigantic. He is absolutely terrifying as Michael Myers, and I mean, don't get me wrong, I love the thin, almost cat-like version of Michael Myers from the original and some of the sequels, but this is a different one where he's more like a hulking brute, where you believe it when he ends up going through a wall, because this guy is gigantic. And Rob Zombie said very early on in his interviews that he wanted to do for Halloween what Christopher Nolan did for Batman, which was to make Michael Myers scary again, because a lot of the later sequels made him more of a joke, or made him just not terrifying. There was no tension, save for Halloween H2O and some parts of Halloween 4. The fear just wasn't at the same level as it was in the first two films. But however, that's brought back through brilliant direction and just the overall visceral violence that just feels very animalistic. This Michael Myers feels almost like an animal as opposed to a monster, and I like that. I like that direction that they go with the character. He almost feels like a violent animal as opposed to a violent supernatural force. And that's how I compare John Carpenter's Michael Myers is a violent supernatural force. Rob Zombie's Michael Myers is a violent animal force. And it's like they're two separate things, but they have their similarities, obviously. And overall, I think that when people think of remakes that do it well and are respectful of the original, I think Halloween is right up in there. I think it's a very good film. In fact, I think it's one of my favorite Halloween movies, besides, of course, the original. I might even like this one better than Halloween H2O, because it explores more of the dynamics between Dr. Loomis and Michael Myers and his childhood. And I implore people who have avoided it because they love the original to go into it with an open mind and give it a shot. It's a very good, very well directed movie. I would even say that it's one of Rob Zombie's best movies. So Rob Zombie's Halloween. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? What is your favorite horror remake? Are you excited about the new Halloween? Which is your favorite Halloween movie? Comment below, let me know, and as always, thanks for watching. Bye.